When it comes to ranking the best figures from a given year, we here at Toy Galaxy play by a few simple rules. 1. Figures had to be released that calendar year, not just acquired that year. 2. None of this 14 best of 2014, 15 best of 2015 garbage. That's a BS cop-out. Where does it end? The 121 best of 21-21? Where's the challenge? We're a base 10 society. Stop trying to be clever. Top 10, period. 3. It's my list. If I didn't buy it, it was automatically eliminated from consideration. 4. Here's the setup. Underground bunker. Everything on the surface world is going to be destroyed. There's only room for 10 figures released this year. Time to choose. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is my top 10 action figures of 2015. At number 10 is Star Wars 6-inch Black Series IG-88. It's not an upset per se, but it is a stunner. When faced with the reality of having to choose which 10 figures are going in the bunker with me, I couldn't leave out one of the few 6-inch Black Series bounty hunters that have actually been produced. On top of that, he's a gorgeous figure for what he is. This self-aware, pipes and wires, gun-toting lamppost is one of the clunkier, nay, clunkiest looking characters in the Star Wars galaxy. That he is a bounty hunter, that he shared screen time with Boba Fett and Bossk is a miracle unto itself that can only be explained by serendipity and the ability to dispense drinks from his head. He's not as tall as he should be, he's not as posable as he could have been, but Hasbro did him right with paint apps and the due respect of being released before Dengar has even been announced. At number 9 is Marvel Legends Star-Lord. Released in the Entertainment Earth exclusive Guardians of the Galaxy comic-styled box set, it marked the second time this figure had been released with the specific comic-based treatment and a continuation of its exclusive-based existence. I missed it the first time it was released as part of the Comic-Con exclusive Thanos Imperative in 2014, so I was psyched to get a second crack at it. He stands out as an example of what the Marvel Legends line is capable of when the sculpt, paint, and articulation choices all converge to result in a figure that is comic accurate but still fun even if, like me, you don't know or care who the character is in the books. Star-Lord was pushing $100 on the secondary market, so it was a no-brainer to pay the same amount to get the Entertainment Earth set, which also included the rest of the Guardians and a crap ton of accessories. At number 8 is Funko's Legacy Collection Rocketeer. The 6-inch figure scale is still relatively young. Marvel Legends began in 2002, but the rest of the industry was slow to respond. DC Universe Classics started in 2008, and Black Series has only been around since 2013, and we still don't have a 6-inch G.I. Joe line. While 80s and 90s nostalgia unforgivingly dominate pop culture, there are properties that collectors silently cross their fingers and dream of, but never expect to actually get made, like the Rocketeer. Released in 1991, there was absolutely no reason to think that we would ever see a realistic treatment of a Rocketeer figure in 6-inch scale, especially since there are no other characters with the same visual pop to justify an entire line. I would have expected a full reboot of the franchise in order to get a classic version of the Rocketeer made. While his joints tend to be a bit loose and the alternate Cliff Secord head is poorly rendered, Funko nailed everything else. The Rocketeer would have made the list if for no other reason than it may be the only time we ever see a figure like this. It's an added bonus that Funko delivered such a great-looking piece of fun, pulpy sci-fi nostalgia. At number 7 is Star Wars 6-inch Black Series Bossk. Yeah, I'm that guy. I like Star Wars and I like the bounty hunters, even though other than Boba Fett, they never actually did anything. Their personalities and accomplishments exist in the imagined adventures of my childhood mind, where everyone can be a badass except that turd Dengar, and even he had his good days. Bossk is a sculpting and paint application Hall of Fame entry for Hasbro. Such silvery cables, so scaly and detailed, his little shoulder patch, his kind of articulated jaw. If it weren't for his complete inability to be put into any useful positions, he might have been top 3 on this list. And even though I might not get all of the bounty hunters into the bunker with me, I can't leave out the 2 that got released this year. I'm crossing my fingers and voting Zuckuss and 4LOM in 2016. Number 6 is Mafex Darth Vader. Even as the host of a toy show on YouTube, I'm not always aware of every figure that is being released and when it is actually available for sale. Producer Greg, on a whim, ordered Mafex Vader, and when we finally had a chance to check it out, it blew us away. I liked it so much that I traded him a Figuarts Yoshi for it. It's the best 6-inch Vader available on the market in terms of accuracy and posability. While not without nitpicks like his mixed plastic and cloth goods robes and his inability to sit down, everything else about him is awesome. Multiple handsets, removable helmet, wire in cloth lining, and cape. He's a figure I didn't expect to get this year and certainly didn't expect to be so impressed with. While I'm not giving up on Hasbro's Black Series, the imports made their case this year, and I am listening. Number 5 is Marvel Legends Slice of Pizza. Limited in articulation, the Hobgoblin Wave Slice of Pizza is incredibly detailed with 6 pepperonis and tons of extra cheese. It's slightly folded in a casual on-the-go style with texturing underneath that looks so pan-fresh that I feel like I should be using a napkin or a paper plate lest I drip cheesy oil in the photo booth. If the sculpt and paint apps of this slice of pizza aren't enough to convince you, keep in mind that Hasbro packed it with accessories including a Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure piece and a Spider-Man action figure with 2 different heads and 3 handsets. It's not about why Hasbro made this slice of pizza, it's why did they wait so long? At number 4 is Combiner Wars Megatron with the DX9 add-on kit. For Christmas 1985, my brother got Optimus Prime and I got Megatron, and since then I've been waiting for Hasbro to produce a figure that actually looked and felt like the character from the cartoon, because that guy in 1985 was not it. Neither of those figures have aged well, but Optimus has been revisited to the point where his look and transformation have been perfected. Megatron, on the other hand, has been left to the whims of the third-party companies. With the release of Combiner Wars, is that how that's pronounced? Megatron, Hasbro finally delivered a Megatron that could stand toe-to-toe with the other Masterpiece figures in robot mode. And while I do like this figure without the DX9 kit, the add-on pieces go a long way to cover up some of the tank parts with gun parts that are intrinsic to making it look like Megatron. And I don't even care if I never transform this thing into a tank again. If we're being honest, his transformation into a gun has always been problematic. If you focus on the gun, you lose the robot, and the robot is really the more important part. Masterpiece Megatron, Apollyon, Hegemon, how often do those figures ever get transformed into their gun modes? Once? It's like collectors just need to know that it can change into a gun, even if it has nothing to do with its use in their collection. To really be consistent with his transformation, he has to shrink down, so I can just use the Masterpiece scale Megatron gun that comes with Optimus and Soundwave anyway. Since Christmas 1985, Megatron has been a favorite of mine, and I finally feel like I have a figure that lives up to that legacy. Number 3 is Figuarts Vul Eagle. There's no getting around the power of nostalgia when it comes to being a toy collector, first of all, and more so when it comes to trying to rank them. Things like, I don't like toe articulation get tossed aside when a character that is part of your DNA gets a modern action figure treatment. Having been a kid watching Son Vulcan on Japanese television in 1981, he's as important to me as Superman, Spider-Man, or Boba Fett. He's one of my childhood heroes, and I can't even have an objective conversation about him because Son Vulcan is such a part of who I am. He's like family. I can't be critical of his costume, the plot devices, or the 70s feel of the theme music any more than I can be critical of the number of fingers I have or the sound of my voice. They just are what they are. Son Vulcan, Vul Eagle just are. And he might have been ranked higher if I owned Vul Shark and Vul Panther, but those two just are priced too high right now. So even though he held the #1 spot in the top 10 of 2015 as late as October, he officially sits at number 3. Number 2 is Revoltech Boba Fett. If you know me, if you've been following the channel, if you have even glanced at my Instagram, you know that I'm a fan of Boba Fett. So it's no surprise to see Revoltech's Boba Fett in the number 2 slot unless you thought it was going to be in the number 1 slot. Why is it so highly ranked? Detailed sculpt, brilliant use of matte finish and glossy paint apps, multiple handsets, detailed weapons, unheard of articulation and posability, and they even went plastic goods on the cape instead of cloth. Why isn't he number 1? It's weird, as accurate as this figure is, it isn't quite movie Boba Fett for me. His proportions are off, likely due to the amount of engineering involved to give him the amount of articulation he has. There are some parts of his body, like his shoulders, that in a normal standing position just don't have a correct position. Ultimately, the personality that comes out of this figure, for me, feels more like Robot Chicken's portrayal of Boba Fett than the films themselves. I would still rank it behind Black Series for movie accuracy, but I can't think of a figure that I've had more fun posing for Instagram photos than this version of Fett, and I look forward to picking up more of the imports based on the fully realized potential of this figure alone. A couple of honorable mentions before hitting number 1. Marvel Legends Ghost Rider and Spider-Man 2099 were both included in previous videos, but in the end they didn't have the same deep-rooted nostalgia connections that the rest of the figures had. They would have been numbers 11 and 12 respectively. And my number one figure for 2015 is NECA Toys Christopher Reeve's Superman. A very late entry into the 2015 field, yes, but I can't imagine this figure doesn't take the number one spot even if it had been released on January 1st. Everything about this figure is a collector's dream come true. Spot-on likeness, brilliant colors, perfectly proportioned, a cloth goods cape that hangs just right, and multiple handsets. It does the actor, the movies, and the character justice at every level. Sure, the films read incredibly hokey by today's grim and gritty superhero audience, but Superman is hokey. He's a paragon of good, of morality. He's always going to do the right thing because it's right. And that's hard for a lot of writers and fans to get behind. This Superman is still my movie Superman, and like the Rocketeer, I never thought we'd actually see a figure like this, especially done this well. I'm on the record as being very critical of NECA Toys when it comes to their quality control and the materials they use to make these items. A limited release like this should stand up better to being taken out of the package, much less trying to move the articulated limbs. But I can't deny that NECA delivered a figure that, more than all the other figures on this list, I would want to take into that end of the world as we know it bunker. That's my top 10 of 2015. I was surprised by the amount of diversity in terms of lines represented. Yeah, 5 of the 10 were Hasbro, but 2 were Black Series, 2 were Marvel Legends, and the other was a Transformer. Figuarts, Revoltech, Mafex, Funko, and NECA each grabbed a spot as well. It was 50% Star Wars, 40% superheroes, and 10% giant transforming alien robot. Just like me. We did videos for all 10 of the figures on this list. Links to each video can be found in the description below. Thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments below what your top 10 for 2015 are. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and just like IG88, I'm not an upset per se, but I am a stunner. Offset? I said offset.